Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. Police military clash is what we are discussing today. Indeed, we've heard one too many times when the army feels a little bit agitated about something the police would have done, and therefore they will storm wherever the police is and then ransack the place, including sometimes personnel. It seems to be coming one too many times, and we need to stem it because it's a very, very uncomfortable position to be for anybody, particularly a country, if you have your army and your police not on the same side. Well, maybe the police is a service and the army is a force, and that's how maybe they react. While the police are providing service, the army is providing brute force. What then happens is we need to see we want to see the perpetrators punished. However, these things are normally, protocols, and they want it dealt behind the scene. Could this be the reason why it doesn't stop and it keeps, going on? Should these issues to be brought out in the open and the perpetrators punished in the open and maybe punished severely so that they stop? But what we will get to find out is what at all is the procedure if the police feel offended about the army or the army feels offended about the police? What is the procedure? Is it the same as coming into studio and arresting Nana Nsakwa, or there is a different protocol for these two bodies? That's what we're going to find out. My name is Nana Nsakwa IV, Chief of the Republic of Akwemwedimas. When I come back, I have two fine gentlemen, one from each side, but the good old days side of the police and the army. You don't want to go away. Well, thank you very much for staying and with me in the studio set. Right next to me is Captain Budu Kumsin, retired, former military man. So obviously he will be not speaking for the army, but speaking as an army man. Captain, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then I have Superintendent retired, Paul Lavui, seasoned police officer. So I have one, Superintendent, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So I have one army man and one military man. And what I really want to get to the crux of this is, what are the protocols? Of course, we'll find out the nitty-gritty, how things happen, but going forward, what are the protocols and how it is that we will stem it? Because it seems to be on the rise. Captain, it seems to be, on the rise. There was this Tamale issue, there's a Kwesimintim issue, there's another issue where the military felt that the police were wearing camouflage, and and so they just storm wherever it is and ransack people. In your days in the army, I mean, do you ever recall storming any police vicinity or police station to go and make some action?
No. Good evening to our listeners. I will say maybe luckily in my time I didn't have the course or the to do such a thing, and but it's something that happens. It's a human institution, even in families we fight and those things. So these are things that they come up from time to time, and they can and should be resolved. But the feeling, justifiably so, is that it looks like there's an uptick. The frequency of it is a bit worrying, and it has to be addressed.
Wednesday's clash is set.
And we have to put the record straight. We should be careful not to inflame the passions already raised out there, because it is still a very liquid situation, fluid situation, and it's a developing story. So we have to be careful not to inflame the situation. But from the past, there has been instances of police arrest of military personnel and the military reacting and the military doing this. So I understand that there have been protocols put in place. It's not like the military or the police are above the law, civil law. Both of us are under the law. But then there have been protocols put in place to avoid this feeling of hurt, this feeling of superiority, this feeling that I have the power to do this, so that it avoids these clashes. And the practice has been that I understand during the revolutionary days and when I was away and all these things, there were instances the police arrested military personnel and the military didn't understand and almost resulted in outright war on the street. So the protocols were put in place where it was set, and it is the practice up to now, that if for any reason a soldier is arrested out of his jurisdiction, meaning the barracks, by the police, the soldier is to immediately identify himself, that he's a service personnel, and give his number, rank, and name, and his unit. That is what I have been told is the practice now. That is what has been agreed to the arresting officers. That's the police station or whatever it is. Now, the police then will immediately contact the unit. And I say the unit, the commanding officer, that your boy, this has fallen foul of the law, this. And after the necessary documentations have been done, the commanding officer will arrange for the personnel, the military personnel, to be moved out of the civil or the police custody into military custody. It's not like he's set free. And I tell you, sometimes the guard room is worse than the civil side. Yeah. Sent into civil custody, the military custody, where they also will initiate military disciplinary procedure, because then he is now under two laws, the Armed Forces Disciplinary Code and the Civil Disciplinary Code. So even when, sometimes very often, the military punishments are even more severe than the civil. So this is what is, I understand is the process. So, and then should the police need the personnel, military personnel, to come for interrogations, investigations, documentations of these things, the commanding officer now will detail an officer who will accompany the soldier to the police barracks anytime he is needed. And so to facilitate this, and then he is sent back. I think depending on the severity of the offense, even then, I don't know what, even if it is murder or whatever, he's safer in the military custody. It's more secure, especially with these days that when ordinary civilians will storm police stations and take them out and all these things. You'd rather want to keep them safe. And once you have documented his name, number, and rank, he can't go anywhere. Even if he runs away from the barracks, the military police will go and bring him back. And he worsens his case. So these are the protocols that have been put in place to ensure that there is a good rapport between the two services. This is what I know. Maybe the police officer will confirm or add something to it.
Good evening, viewers.
Yeah.
I think he has said it all. As far as I know, that is the protocol. And the other point is that depending on the nature of the situation, depending on the nature of the offense, maybe if he was seen committing the offense in the presence of the police, he will be arrested, and then information is given to where, or the unit he is attached or working with. When it is not an offense which is committed in the presence of the police officer, but a report has been lodged with the police about the conduct of an officer, what happens is that a letter is written to the head of the unit, and then, like he said, the officer will make sure another officer who is senior rank will accompany him to the police station to listen to what he has got to do with the crime or the complaint. So the protocols are there, but I think that we are not keeping the procedures.
Is this maybe a bit of ego? I don't know, because if all these procedures are there, because we are told that, you know, after a couple of reports, eventually he was cuffed. I mean, I don't know, did he suddenly become more of a threat? I mean, maybe you and I are not there, but did he become more of a threat that at one particular day now he has to be cuffed?
I think that it all boils down to orientation and education. You know, first and foremost, every military or police officer must understand the fact that he is a citizen who is trained and empowered to play a role in society. And looking at the police, they have roots in the military, because the police emerged, if you go to history, it emerged out of the military because it was started with a group of ex-servicemen. And then we have the past, some of the past heads of the police as military officers. So along the line, I don't know what happened, the orientation is missing, and that rapport seems to have broken down. And when these things are happening, it becomes an unfortunate development in the growth and development of our democracy. So the underlying factors must be looked at again, and so that we find a solution to the problem.
You see, Nana, in this instance, you asked a very poignant question. He has been going, and then suddenly the issue of the handcuffs come in. What happened? Did he suddenly go berserk? What really happened? I've had the opportunity to talk to both the military and the police PROs, and we are both saying that the story does not jive. There's something there, something went missing. In this instance, the officer has been accompanying this soldier there several times, and I don't know, today maybe investigator is not there, come tomorrow, this, and the officer had something to do today, I mean, so yesterday. So he said, look, I've been there several times with you. I understand the officer even called the police station to excuse himself that, look, I am engaged, but the corporal is coming, and if there's anything, get back to me. That's what they report from both Ekuru and Agri, both the police and the military. Now, the guy goes in there, and I understand that now he's told that, look, now we finished processing and investigating, and we are preparing you for court. So maybe the circumstances of your bail will change, or God knows what it is. But then the question is, where comes in then the issue of the handcuffs? And why would he now run? That is what is, because from what is it now, we have to be careful not to say anything that will inflame the situation. We have to keep cool heads and make sure that in about 2 or 3 days' time, a proper statement will be issued when they've gone into the facts of the case. But the issue is that circumstances changed, and according to the judge, they wanted to lock him up. In fact, they cuffed him, and they wanted to put him behind the counter back, and that was where he bolted and said, "Hey, I mean, the officer said, I have to call him if anything is wrong or whatever it is." And from there, then it becomes bizarre, whether he was beaten before he ran or what. But from what we hear, it was a civilian, a lady who told the military guys close by that, look, somebody's been beaten, and say he's a soldier, and these things, and they actually run. And what is even more bizarre is that the guy was running. Yes, he's running from lawful custody. So it is the duty of the police to make sure that he does not run from lawful custody. But to shout a real thief or something could endanger his life. And that is what is, we have to analyze and confirm that if that is the situation, right? So the guy gets to the military detachment close by, and they take custody of him, and he got there in cuffs. They had to break the cuffs. So why the cuffs? And that is what we are trying to find out. Something is missing. Something went radically wrong. And that's when when he was able to identify himself as a soldier, his colleague said that no. Then we're taking him to barracks. One lie, and then that's where it ensued. This one called reinforcement, this one called reform. There's, like our colleague officer is saying, the protocols are not being observed. Yes. Something went radically wrong. It's like, are we seeing a situation whereby, yeah, I can lock you up or I'll show you where power lies or something. We have to be careful with these things so that one side doesn't feel that, right, if you do this, then I will also do this. Because, hey, both of them are armed and they are supposed to protect us. And if the protectors want to sort themselves out first, these armed robbers will have a field day. There will be nobody to take care of us.
Yeah, I think that in some cases, the arrests are hastily done. You know, a case is reported. The one who received or who is investigating the case must sit down and analyze the content of the complaint and be sure that a crime has been committed. If a crime has been committed, what is the nature of the crime? Then you plan on how to go about your investigation. But most often, as soon as somebody comes to the police station and makes a complaint, they will take the complaint down, and then the next step is arrest.
Arrest the one they complained against.
You have to sit the complainant down, take a full statement from the complainant, analyze the statement, and then, if possible, you go to the scene of the crime and try as much as possible to carry out some interrogations to verify whether there are people who were there, and try to elicit some information from them. That will help you in determining what actually happened before you come back and consider the move to arrest. But when you just take a complaint and act on the complaint without any preliminary investigation, it creates some of these problems.
You see, and very often you are having a dispute with someone. The person either knows a police officer or goes to complain first at the police station. And then the next thing is that if you get there, if you are not lucky, you are counterback at once. We are having these issues in East Legon. We are having these, especially with these land cases. If one side goes ahead to report you, if you are not careful, you are arrested, put at the counterback, and made to bail. We have a situation where in East Legon, these land guards actually went to a plot of land where somebody has his 1 or 2 bedroom thing, got into altercation with him, beat him up. They went to police station first to complain. The guy went to complain later on, and he was locked and he had to be bailed. I mean, then we said, hey, hello, what is this? And if you are not lucky, you are locked. The thing is that if you are not lucky, Friday locking is very safe. They lock you Friday, and then we're talking about Monday. You see, it is somewhere inching towards abuse of the custodial powers. And these things, and when these, you get to, you could do it to everybody. But when these military guys are well trained, when they know their rights, and they won't just allow you to treat them shabbily, easily what a civilian will kowtow to and be quiet about it, they will resist. Yeah. And then it brings about these frictions.
Let's get
let me chip in. The arrest, you know, even the law says that if someone is arrested, you must explain to the person the reason of the arrest in the language that he or she understands. But most often, these things are not done. Let's take this particular case in hand. If the military officer has reported, or when you go to arrest him, you tell him the reason of the arrest, and he understands that that is exactly what he did, that you are coming for him, I don't think there will be any scuffle. But the point is, like I said, hasty arrests just based on mere complaints normally bring us about these misunderstandings, either it's a civilian or otherwise.
Superintendent, let me stay with you. Let's get a bit controversial. I mean, from the time the 79 coup came about, when the military was now in power, we know go sit down, made them cheaters every day.
That one was the civilians, not the military.
But it was, they had the military backing. They had the military backing. The curfews and everything were all, run by the military. Could this be?
Was it just the military? It was run by the military and police. I beg to differ.
I'm trying to find out where this culture came from. It must have come from somewhere. And I'm just trying to go back to 79 to think that. Look,
no, I think even before, even the 1966
coup,
it was a joint police and military operation. And so those years, no one hears about these things.
Well, it used to happen once in a long while. Senator Kramakra, you will fight.
So, I don't know.
This sense of, I don't know if sense of entitlement or sense of, look, you can't get away with me, must have started from somewhere. Something must have triggered it. An era must have triggered it. And I'm suspecting 79.
For me, it's the orientation, because the police, along the line, we try to copy the military. We try to copy the military. We sometimes try to equate our ranks to the military, which is wrong. Look at the way we dress. We copy the military. At first, you wouldn't see the type of dresses that the police are. And trying to look like the military person.
Right,
the camouflage.
A competition of egos coming in here. And the assignments are absolutely different.
Yeah. So we have failed to understand the fact that we are like parts of one body, having different roles to play. If that orientation and understanding is there, I think that all these things wouldn't be happening, because here you are, police, your roots was in the military, and then along the line you developed to a state where you are on your own, and some of these military coup d'etats brought the police and the military together for those periods of time. And then for the rest of these 25 years, under this constitutional democracy, these things shouldn't be happening. So for me, it's still the due to...
Captain, is it a case of police service and armed forces?
It could be.
The police provide a service, it should be the community amongst us, and the forces are somewhere not to be seen until,
No, not to be seen. If you go to these civilized countries, the soldiers are living in cities. I mean, they are not in some bush somewhere you see them once in a long while. Just that you don't see them often with the military uniforms in the streets. But when it's tough, you see, there's this case where an Israeli general refused a direct order to let his boys be used in police duties against the Palestinians. Our roles are different because you training to, luckily, we haven't had to shoot to kill him, one bullet, one man down. But then the whole idea is to immobilize and make sure that with the least effort you are able to quell these situations. And that's why with in Europe, when the police were a bit overwhelmed with these terrorist attacks in Britain and in France and this thing, suddenly you saw the military on the streets and they clamped down on it hard. They are not too trained in civil military relations. That's their business. When you can't and you bring me in, I have to force some discipline down on the system. And then when it's okay, I withdraw. And then I'm cool. But maybe it's a situation where there's too much military now involved in police duties. I don't know. But I could imagine. I remember those days when the chief of police, Aku, that was the coup that took out Achampo, the 79.
Yeah.
when the police had been seriously armed, the police armored squadron, right?
Yeah, yes.
And all these things. And I think at Champon days, I was well placed to know that. At Champon was trying to counterbalance because the police against the military,
yes.
and the military was seething. And in that coup, 79, you saw what they did to the police armored squadron.
Yeah.
Right? They actually
seized a lot of...
Seized it and annihilated them.
Yeah.
You see, so there's this...
animosity.
There's this inter-entity friction there already, but we are able to paper over it. It started there, and then sometimes it could be that the military police thing and the police people are trying to become more military than the military, and then they look at it, and then, you know, it could be. But like the officer said, it's education. The police, the military, both sides have to be constantly educated as to the law, the protocols, the processes, so that you don't abuse the processes. You understand the laws. You don't abuse the processes. You don't abuse your powers and all these things. You know, we get into a stage where if you are not careful, you would think that there is some sort of Rambo policing going on, and we have to deal with this somehow. Yeah,
so for me, I'll still talk about the orientation, you see, because over the years, you see, when Ghana attained independence, we just had some few years of civilian rule under Kwame Nkrumah. But then even then, the police had not come out of the paramilitaristic orientation. And then the coups came in. And then then we entered the democracy, where rights and fundamental rights and civil liberties have come into play. The reorientation of the police had not been effective enough, you know. So you see that even taking out the military, the treatment to military, look at how we treat the civilians. The Rambo style that he talked about is still there. The zombie type of orientation is still there. We don't respect the human rights of citizens. So we extend it to the military, and then do away with the protocols. And mostly these things are happening at the lower level.
Samuel, let me stay with you. You know, once upon a time, you know, people would join the army because, look, they had this dying ambition that, look, I want to defend this nation. Those who go to the police had a strong sense of, look, justice, and I don't want the downtrodden to be bullied, and therefore I'm going in there to serve for justice. But if truth be told, today it's like a lifeline, or, you know, a bread line, where, look, I need to get in here so I have a wage.
Yeah.
You know, and when they announce vacancies, the sheer numbers and the protocol listings and everything, I'm sure there's a great percentage of people that have entered the force and the service who, you know, are there.
Yeah, I agree with you, because, you know, the party politics had entered into police and military recruitment. So what is the caliber of the men, especially the junior officers who are being recruited? You find yourself in a situation where people cannot even write or read, and they found their way into the police. So why wouldn't they behave like Rambos when these things happen? Because they haven't gotten the right orientation. And all these things happen, and it continues. You remember the scams in the police recruitment. And so what is the caliber? Like you rightly said, do they have the passion for the work, or they just want to find job to do? So when you get these people, those who are actually involved in dealing with the members of the public on a daily basis are not properly trained. Even if they are trained, what is the type of orientation that? Do they have that orientation that regards the constitutional rights and liberties and freedoms of individual citizens, it's not there. So some of these may be the causes to these things.
Captain, let me take a break and come back, because I want to hear your take on this same quality of recruitment. So we're coming straight back to find out what sort of personnel are we getting to look after us. Don't go. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we are looking at the police-military clash, and most importantly, how it is that we can avert it. Just before the break, we were looking at the quality of recruits because of the nature of our politics. If you say, Oseye, and you're lucky and your party comes to power, you're more likely to get a chance into either the police or the military, even though the military, it's a bit more difficult because the numbers, the intakes are limited. But Captain, before we, I want to do the quality, but before we do that, there's two stories. One, that this guy beat his driver. Number two, he beat his wife. You know, who did he beat? The driver and the wife and the driver?
In fact, it has been established beyond any doubt that there was no issue of the normal domestic violence like we know. Like somebody has beaten a wife, okay, somebody has beaten a child, and that is why the police went in to arrest him. There's nothing like that. Here is a soldier who has bought a taxi and is running a commercial and has a driver, and he thinks that the driver is filching the sales, right? And it continued, and then he had evidence that, hey, you even had a hiring or something, and you're telling me that the whole day you were arrested by the police, no sales, and he beat him up. So, and seized his motorbike. So naturally, that is assault. He went to the police station and reported assault. Now, we do understand where come this Dovsu wife thing, and apparently, I think that police station, the offices of the Dovsu and the CID, I think, are close by. So maybe the press got it wrong or somebody. But at 3 o'clock this afternoon, my contacts in Tamale were telling me that a policeman was saying that, well, friends, it's beat up his wife. So I said, get me the name of that policeman, because I want to give the name of that policeman to the director of protocol, public relations, and then suddenly he said he refused to give him his name. It had to be established that there was no domestic violence, classical domestic violence like a woman, a wife, or a child has been beaten. That was not the case. It's a purely commercial thing that somebody got upset, he's being filched, and then he actually beat up the person, and it's an assault case.
Okay, so that's clear. The other thing we want to find out is, can we do something about the quality of people coming in, or we are stuck with it because of economic factors? How do you see it?
Definitely we could, but you see, this thing about are people getting into these professions as a calling, I dare say not like it used to be, because of maybe the economic situation too, the level of unemployment or the number of job openings. Look at the number of graduates and SS people we are churning out every year, and the number we can employ. So now it's a desperate situation. But then even that, if you make the mistake and you think it's a desperate, so you go in during the training period and the vetting period, if it is done well, if you are not cut out for that type of rigorous profession, it should filter you out. You remember the case where the previous government took in a batch of recruits, military recruits, to the Armed Forces Training Center, and they said they rebelled because the training was too hard. They were partying, you know, and then all of them were sacked. You can use the training regime, even if it was by mistake he got in there because the calling, you can actually make him imbibe the tenets and the discipline of the profession, or fall out. You can't change it. Maybe the training period is a bit too short. I don't know what it is. But 1.5 hours in the military academy or 2 years in the military academy, you will shed all your civilian something and take on a new character. You know, it will be beaten and chased out of you. And that should be the situation. I mean, they really have to change your character with which you came in. All that funny, fancy thing you did outside as a civilian the training should make you put it aside and now take on the new character. And thereafter is continuous training. I don't know what they do, but before training, before you are promoted to the next rank, you have to pass certain professional exams and all these things. And then not just professional, the book one, but also on the practicals. What you do, I mean, your character, everything should show. They should all count for something, you know. So I don't know, but like you said, I think that the passion and the calling is not like it used to be. And because, unfortunately, because the police is like 3, 4, 5 times the size of the military, the army, the military, you see more of it in that instance. But in the military, if you are that rascally, maybe also the revolution times also damaged us also, you know. But hey, I insist that it is the duty of the officer corps to insist and instill discipline in the men. Sometimes you have cowardly officers and lazy officers who are afraid to be bad guys. You know, for this officer, for this officer is a no, you know, so you have them. But then the system should also be in such a way that if you are that type of popular softy officer, you should also suffer for it.
I think that I agree with what he has said, and let me add that the question of leadership comes in here. You are there, and then people who are being brought to come and be in the service do not have the quality, but because of political influence, you allow it. You get these things happening. We need a leadership of courage, a leadership which will stand for the truth, a leadership which will not look at the tummy, but insist on doing the right thing. And if you are going to be sacked, they sack you for, trying to make sure that principles work. This is what we don't have. You know, so these things are happening because some of the things are like a family pool thing that we are doing is connected to a DC, an MC, a minister, a politician. So we have politically motivated recruitments and promotions which are undermining discipline, you know, and demoralizing people. So
that is all well and good, but if I'm your commander, I will not. There. If I'm your commander, you can't bring your father to my unit.
It's not happening.
It won't happen. It's still the officer corps that has to be bold.
Bring the chief of the village, to bring the pastor.
To where? By the time he comes, he's in the guard room. So to where?
Yeah, but
I mean, what are you talking about? You see, it got to a stage. Let me also acknowledge that the June 4th revolution and the 31st, the level of discipline that was destroyed also made it a bit difficult for the officer corps to assert itself. They are still growing out of it. But it's those of us who left a bit some while ago, you go to the barracks, or you see the boys and you see the officers and you wonder, it's a bit too cratchy. It's a bit too soft. You know, yes, now it's a more intellectual military. It's a more intellectual police, but still the discipline is the discipline. It has to be hard, you know. And I think the era of the two revolutions, the June 4th, which lasted for a very short while but was deadly, and then the long one, the 31st one, until that 11 years of direct military rule.
So you agree with me a bit that, you know, those coups
did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It did a lot of damage. We haven't assessed the true damage that 11 years of the revolution did to Ghana. Yeah. We haven't assessed it. Not just the military. It killed almost everything. It was deadly, and we're still paying. We are still recovering, and we are paying the price for that period.
Let me take a couple of comments from Facebook. Victor Ampon says, in advanced nations, animals are treated with more respect than Africans treat their fellow citizens. How can the peacekeepers themselves be lawless if we can't trust our security personnel? Who then can we trust? They are engaging in armed robbery and petty thievery. How are the prospects selected? Do they do any background checks before they are recruited? Ghana, we can overcome this. So let's push together irrespective of your political preference. Leaders working together is the only way out to succeed. Let's go to this one. Fatal Thinker says, all this is due to pride and arrogance. And then Mighty Raymond Diaz says, can't believe this is happening. The very people meant to protect us are rather caught in heads banging, heads rolling, means transferring them. They should be fired to serve as a deterrent to others. It's high time we stop this Ghana. An incident happens, we set up investigation, and it's dead on the go. Are we serious at all as a country? Let me get one more. Moses Ukucheku says, have you seen why the zoo didn't have a leader, police and army to fight? May Jehovah help them. Well, let's come back here and find out what would be the way forward. You know, somebody raised something about, you set up an investigation and then that's it, it's going to die out. I mean, should these perpetrators be really punished, or, I don't know, somebody found the guilty party be punished, or they should settle this amicably, esprit de corps, as they say?
Nobody's above the law, like he said from the beginning. So the law must work, must be made. But in making sure the law works, you must do the right things. The procedures and the processes must be well executed, so that when the person is going to face punishment or whatever it is, he knows that, yes, there is justice in what is being done against me. But if it is not so, it's worrying, But for a start, I think the problem is at the lower level, and the officers, the senior officers too, are not so assertive. So there should be some joint endeavors for the junior officers across the nation, so that they understand the fact that they are parts of one body playing different roles. And then the police must know that their roots is in the military, and therefore they respect the mutual trust and confidence and the rapport must be worked on, so that that trust comes.
Before I come to Captain, I mean, this issue of competition keeps ringing. The style of dressing, I mean, would you rather they went back to the good old policing days where they were more, dressed like gentlemen rather than soldiers? But now they tuck in their trousers, whereas first, the trousers was outside. They wear normal trousers, but now they tuck in their trousers in the boots, just like the army does. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
they wear camouflage now. The police wear camouflage.
I think we have to, the police, because they are copying. So we have to get back to our roots. I mean, for now, look at it. For me, if I was an authority, every police officer at the station should be in tie, with the white top and the black trousers. You look gentlemanly. And if you are going to an operation, you wear the operational
dress. Then you wear
dress.
A combat dress.
But now you see policemen going about without their caps and doing a lot of things and nobody seems to be checking them. And some of them are dirty in dress, and look at now, they wear some canvas type of desert boots. Is that part of the police uniform? I mean, so discipline is undermined, and we don't have the leadership to check all this, because if he does it, he has been given contract, he has been promoted. So if he goes against the political authority, maybe he will lose his job. That is the orientation. So these things are not happening. And discipline, you see, because the military and the police are structured on discipline. When discipline breaks down, then everything goes haywire.
And you see, the way forward. Already, like you said, debates are being organized and have been organized. All the commanders have to actually sit down and have discussions, debates with them to cool the temperature and explain exactly what happened. Otherwise, there will be this emotional spin and then obfuscating the truth. Like this thing about the woman and the child, and that is put the bare facts out there and explain the processes and procedure, what should have been the right process and procedure, where we went wrong, and explain the protocols, the do's and don'ts to your staff. Both military, both sides should be doing that.
Even at the training school, at the recruit training school, we should see more of police, more of military officers coming there to give lectures to the recruits and vice versa, so that at least before they leave the training school, that rapport and the clear understanding of their roles and responsibilities are well known, because all these things, like I said, are happening at the junior level. It's not the senior level.
Yeah, you see, because even at the senior level, until recently, at the staff college, the senior police officers and the military were going to school together.
Yes.
At the staff college. So you come out and you know your counterpart here, so you can talk and it's easy. So these things should be done. Education of both personnel in the services as to the protocols, the law, continuous education of the staff. And then we should not brush it too always under the carpet. When we start an investigation, it should come to an end, and the results should be made known. And then the culprits also punished accordingly, so that it serves as a deterrent to the next person. But you see, this thing will start, and we will never know when it ended and what happened, what was the cause. Mutual respect for each service, for ourselves. He made a classic point. When I go to Germany, because that's where I often go home, the police are not dressed like the military. When you go to UK, the police are not dressed like the military. Even in the US, where the police have their hands always on the gun, the police guys are not dressed like the military. Why are the police people now dressed, sometimes even overdressed than the military? Where is the combat?
They have the
put on the combat when you are going to face the armed robber, the vigilantes, these land guards and things. Put on that combat uniform when you are going on an operation. But when you are walking around the streets, the policeman in Britain now walks around the streets with his clean uniform, right, but with a gun. He doesn't wear camouflage combat uniform in Tutenbeck and all those. They don't do that.
No.
So you see, we have to get our things right. I mean, these are all little bits, psychological things that are mushrooming mushrooming into things. Continuous education of the troops on the rule of law. Yeah. It has to be done. And then again, please, I want to mention, without sounding a bit controversial, that we should encourage our police brothers to be a bit more constrained with the custodial powers, arrest and custodial. So you go to Canterbury and the people they put it's not necessary. You arrest a person for it's like power. If you joke with me, I'll show you where power lies. I think they must be a bit more reticent in the exercise of these powers.
That orientation is still there.
It's like there is a song, or there's a saying that Woody can wa himfia na wundi bi. Now Woody can wa police station na wundi bi. That's like Woody can wa police station na wundi bi. And we have to look at.
You see, it's because of some of these things that police stations are attacked. You know, the mode of arrest, without doing any proper assessment of whether a crime has been committed, what's the nature of the crime, how do I start my investigations? But just depending on a mere 3 stance complaint and going to arrest somebody, even if you go to arrest, you don't even tell the person what we call it, the reason of his arrest. You come and you lock him up maybe 48 hours, because the constitution says 48 hours. And so all this goes on and on and on. And so the resentment continues to grow within the members of the society, because their rights are not being respected.
You see, there used also to be this, they call it the CESA games, the Security Services Force. You know, these games also foster some sort of rapport with ourselves. I understand for years now,
it's not happening.
It isn't happening. But luckily, they go on joint operations. Calm Life, you do it together. Cow Leg, you do it together. So sometimes I really do understand how these blow-ups actually happen. But like we said, again, the commanders should
be alive,
be made to be. They should be responsible for their men. They should, this continuous training.
Yeah.
When I was in my service, I was a young man. I left as a young man. But the training of platoon was my problem. I was responsible for how effective they were. And so therefore my company commander was responsible for our professional behavior. My battalion commander was responsible for our professional behavior. Are these officers being held responsible for the behavior of their troops?
Too soon. That's what time would allow us. And I always give you the number before I go. It's 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. And that's Tante's Fashions. They make my shirts for the show. Give them a call and they get you a shirt. And I had one fine retired military personnel and one fine retired police officer in-house, Captain Budikumsin and Mr. Paul Avui, and they have indeed educated us. And so those of you running affairs now, be responsible for your men, and those of you at the bottom, learn the procedure to avert all these happenings. We'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you very much for watching, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.